Taran Shivers stood not at the edge of a scrapyard, but at the boundary of what others dared not see. To most, the rusted hulls and twisted remnants of starships were dead things, cosmic litter strewn by forgotten wars and failed dreams. But, to Taran, each broken beam, each humming shard of alien circuitry whispered potential. In the silence of the twin suns setting, the junkyard glowed like the ashes of a god, waiting to be reborn. He was not just a scavenger. He was a believer in second chances, both for machines and for people. The thrill wasn't in profit, but in resurrection, to pull something ruined from oblivion and make it sing again. But even among twisted alloys and scavenged wonders, Taran hadn't expected to find her. A voice, melodic and sharpened with confidence, called out behind him. He turned, and the world shifted. Hovering in place, her chair a marvel of tech, floated an alien woman with skin like emerald fire and hair that shimmered violet with the dying light. She was poised, self-contained, and burning with something deeper than curiosity. She knew who he was. She called him out with that same sharp edge, a man of lowball offers and borderline ethics. And Taran, ever the showman, bowed to her accusation. With theatrical flair, he wore his guilt like a badge. But she wasn't like the others who dismissed him. She noticed his eyes lingering on her chair's propulsion system, not with pity, but fascination. And when he circled her hoverchair, noting the heat from a struggling compensator coil, she let him touch it. Not because she trusted him, but because maybe, just maybe, hope was a harder habit to break than bitterness. He fixed the problem. Without ceremony, recalibrated her grav coils, gave her smoother motion. It wasn't a miracle. Just understanding of tech, of nuance, of what it meant to carry brokenness with dignity. Then, he made the offer, not a flirtation though his smile tried to soften the edge, but an idea. Robotic legs, illegally built, custom forged, unapologetically human. She froze, not offended, not flattered, wounded. He had prodded something sacred, but still, she followed him, because sometimes, when the world takes your legs, all that's left is the will to walk again. Taran's workshop was not a sanctum of legality or order. It was chaos sculpted with intention, a haven built inside the carcass of an old cargo container where every screw, every schematic whispered rebellion. It was here that he lived, not in safety, but in defiance, and it was here that he brought her, Naera Lavari, inventory specialist by title, survivor by necessity, glided through the blue-lit maze of scavenged wonders. Her fingers grazed the edges of drawn plans like one might read Braille, each line telling a story of impossible machines and broken rules. You pictured something dirtier, didn't you? He asked with a smirk. She didn't answer. Her eyes found the neural interface schematic on the wall, and for the first time since their meeting, the teasing edge in her voice was gone. There was only a whisper of longing. She said her doctors told her integration was impossible, that her species, the Lavari, possessed synaptic patterns too complex, too wild for prosthetic synchronization, that even advanced tech bowed before the chaos of her mind. Taran saw it differently. He didn't believe in limits imposed by manuals or bureaucracies. He believed in salvage, not just of machines, but of dreams left abandoned. He showed her processors salvaged from a crashed research vessel, components so adaptable they could mirror any mind, even one dismissed as too alien to heal. She asked how he found them. He only smiled. I've got a nose for forgotten treasure. And then, without asking, he invited her deeper, not into his workshop, but into the quiet ache of his story. Her accident, she said, wasn't a dramatic war wound. It was corporate failure, equipment unshielded, protocols ignored. The gravity backlash from a malfunctioning terraformer left her body shattered. The company called it a tragedy. The courts called it a footnote. She was the only survivor. He didn't offer pity. He offered rage, the kind that bubbles beneath the surface of every human who's watched justice sold to the highest bidder. She asked why he did this, how a man so gifted with fixing broken things ended up in the shadows, and he told her he had once been part of the machine, a compliance officer, a believer in rules, until he saw the truth that those rules weren't meant to protect people like her. They were scaffolds of power, built to keep the broken. So he stopped following them. Now, he fixed what the system discarded. Not just wires or circuits, but people, spirits. You're not what you seem, she said. Neither are you, he replied. They stood there, in that luminous hush, not touching, but already connected. Not lovers, not partners. Not yet. But something had begun. Something neither of them could stop. What began with sparks soon ignited into motion. They met daily now, under the guise of progress. But it was more than that. Each moment in the workshop hummed with a rhythm beyond machines, a pull of minds drawn together by shared defiance. His hands crafted, her eyes questioned, and between them a vision took form. Legs not borrowed, but born from rebellion. Not assigned by law, but sculpted by will. Taran's nights grew shorter, his missions riskier. One part engineer, one part outlaw, he slipped into forbidden zones, chasing the missing pieces that would complete the dream. He didn't tell her every detail, not because he didn't trust her, but because some truths were burdens too heavy to share until success made them irrelevant. And then one night, he stood beneath the cold light of twin moons, scanning a field of military wreckage. Twisted steel, forgotten weapons, warnings etched in silence. Somewhere in that metallic graveyard, the final processor lay dormant, waiting for resurrection. His communicator buzzed. Naera's voice crisp, concerned, reached across the void. "You're not actually there, are you? Just sightseeing?" He replied, the grin audible in his tone, but even in jest, her worry wrapped around him like a tether. "You're worth more than that processor," she said. He paused. Not at the danger, but at her words. He had risked everything for this project, for her, for them. But in her voice was something more than concern. It was hope, hope wrapped in fear. "I'll be careful," he promised, "because we're too close to stop now." And so he moved, silent and sure, past sentinels and shadows, found what he needed, escaped unseen. But his thoughts lingered elsewhere, on the way she laughed when she forgot to be guarded, on the way she had looked at him the day before when she told him casually that his heart rate rose when she got close. Her species, she said, evolved as empaths. She could feel his reactions. She understood his hesitation, and still, she stayed. By the time he reached her quarters, processor in hand, danger long behind, she was waiting, dressed not in armor or formality, but in trust. She looked at him like he wasn't a risk but a refuge. And when she spoke of compatibility, of differences between their species, it was not scientific. It was personal. And when they touched, the stars did not burn brighter, but he no longer needed them to. That night was not about physics, or rebellion, or prosthetics. It was about possibility. Days passed, then weeks. The workshop changed, as did they. What was once a place of invention became a sanctuary of shared existence. Between wires and schematics, laughter now lived. Between diagnostics and code, there were glances that lingered, longer than necessary. The project had become more than legs. It had become a bridge. She wore his shirt now, as if without thinking. It hung over her frame like an unspoken promise. He never mentioned it, but he noticed. She moved with grace even before the calibration, and with those legs on the table, shimmering with chrome and dark alloys, she would soon move with power. He connected the neural interface to the implant on her back, hands steady, heart trembling. "This is only calibration," he said, but she already knew. The moment the system hummed to life, she gasped. It wasn't pain, it was presence. "I can feel them," she whispered. "They're there." Phantom limbs had haunted her for years, echoes of what had been. But this was different. These weren't memories. These were beginnings. As he adjusted the balance, she let out a breath, part relief, part something else. The connection worked. The bond between nerve and machine had formed. The impossible had bent, just a little, beneath their will. And yet, the room shifted not because of calibration, but because of revelation. "My medical scans," she said, her voice tighter now. "They showed something unexpected." He turned to her, afraid of what might follow. "The integration?" he asked. "No, something else." She paused, then placed her hand gently on her abdomen. "According to all known xenobiology, this shouldn't be possible." She was pregnant, with a child that should not have existed, a hybrid human and Lavari conceived naturally, thriving against every biological odd. Taran could only sit, mind spiraling. The processors, the tech, the mission, all eclipsed by this single fact. They had created something new, something never seen before. A life forged not only of genes, but of defiance, of stolen blueprints and rescued dreams. He stood, walked to her, took her hands in his. "Are you okay with this?" she asked, His answer came without hesitation. This is incredible, impossible, perfect. And in that moment, something else was born. Not of flesh but of certainty. He would see her walk. Their child would see her dance. The days that followed blurred in a rhythm of purpose and joy, in late nights lit by schematics and early mornings marked by soft touches. She walked now, first, in measured steps, then in confident strides. The quantum processors responded not only to her will but to something deeper, a bond with the child she carried, whose very presence rewrote the rules of neural adaptation. Her body changed, and so did the interface. The processor learned her rhythms, adjusted with her hormones, evolved with her pregnancy. The legs, once an audacious gamble, became extensions of her will. When she moved, she did not merely walk, she reclaimed a dimension the universe had stolen. But with progress came reflection. They stood in the quiet of the workshop one evening, her steps light but sure, her hand resting on the gentle curve of her belly. "We can't keep living like this," he said, the words slow, considered. "Illegal salvage, constant risk. This child deserves something better." She nodded, already knowing. Together they had built miracles. Now they would build a future. He showed her plans, a legitimate salvage operation, complete with permits, licenses, and infrastructure. It would be theirs, both by name and by spirit. No more back alley engineering. No more hiding genius behind shadows. "You're serious," she said, a smile forming, as serious as a man can be after falling in love with a woman who defied biology. She laughed, soft and sharp, the way only she could. "You've given me back everything," she whispered, "and I still don't know how." He drew her close. "By believing there's no such thing as lost, only waiting to be found." She spun on those impossible legs, graceful despite the burden she carried. And when she stumbled just slightly, he caught her, not out of duty, but out of instinct. The bond between them had been forged in rebellion, but it was tempered now by purpose. This was no longer about prosthetics or patents. This was about building a home for the future. Their vision took shape in steel and light. A warehouse once forgotten now pulsed with life, humming with sanctioned electricity and echoing with footsteps not of scavengers, but of pioneers. What they had built in defiance, they now offered in truth, a facility to give others what she had gained: mobility, independence, liberation. The licensing board called it revolutionary. The neural integration was unlike anything seen before. But the real revolution wasn't in the code or circuitry. It was in the fact that a woman who had been dismissed as broken now stood at the helm, walking beside her partner, carrying a child that rewrote science itself. 6 months into her pregnancy, Naera moved with confidence. The interface had become second nature. The quantum processor, once a tool, now felt like an extension of her body. She didn't command the legs, she danced with them. And yet, the more stable the system became, the more the unknown began to whisper again. One morning, he led her into the lab, quiet and hesitant. "I built something," he said. For the birth, she looked at it, and for a moment the silence said more than words could. A birthing chair, reinforced and integrated, designed to support both human and Lavari physiology, not just functional, graceful. A throne of engineering and empathy. "I remember you said freedom of movement during labor is sacred in your culture," he added, almost shy. Tears welled in her eyes. Human tears, a habit she had learned from him. "You thought of everything," she said. "No, I just thought of you." Her hands traced the paneling, her fingers knowing intuitively how it worked. And when she looked at him, she didn't see a rebellious scavenger anymore. She saw the father of her child, the man who had given her legs not to stand, but to rise. That night, they spoke of patents and partnerships, but also of names and lullabies, of a child who had already shaped their world, without yet opening his eyes. And when they lay beside each other, surrounded by designs that might save thousands, the only thing that mattered was this truth: they had done the impossible, and they weren't done yet. By the 7th month, the impossible had become routine. She moved through the lab with elegance that defied her form. The legs responded not with calculation, but with intuition. The child growing inside her, this hybrid of human audacity and Lavari grace, was no longer just an anomaly. He was a partner in her motion, his bioelectric field subtly guiding the neural interface like a second heartbeat layered within her own. The military noticed. They arrived early, unannounced, cloaked in authority and curiosity. Men in uniform, eyes sharpened by policy, walked through their doors not with gratitude, but with intent. Colonel Brighton spoke first. Formal, professional, but not unkind. You've created something that goes beyond prosthetics, he said, activating a hologram of their patent filings. The interface. It's responding to hybrid neural patterns. It adapts. It evolves. This could change more than rehabilitation. It could change war. Taran stepped between them. His voice didn't raise, but the room quieted. Our child is not a weapon, he said. The colonel's expression didn't shift, but something subtle moved in his eyes. Calculation, maybe, or restraint. We offer resources, another officer added. Research labs, security, opportunity. We have everything we need, Naera answered, stepping forward. They watched her walk. They saw her balance not just on artificial legs, but on the edge of history. When the visitors left, the silence they left behind was heavier than their words. Taran helped her to a chair. She sank into it with grace, not weariness. They're not wrong, she murmured. This technology, it's unprecedented. They're not wrong, he agreed. But they're not right either. He set up new protocols that night, reinforced their systems, doubled the encryptions. It wasn't fear that drove him. It was protection. Because the thing they had built, the child they carried, both were priceless. And in a world still ruled by ownership, anything priceless was at risk. She touched his face then, gently, not to calm him, but to remind him, you don't have to fight alone anymore. He nodded, hand brushing hers. They were no longer outlaws, but that didn't mean the world had stopped being dangerous. The 8th month brought changes that no diagnostic could predict. Their child unborn, unseen, was already altering the technology he was bound to. His bioelectric field interfaced not just with the neural systems, but with the quantum core itself. Signals became smoother, faster, wiser. The legs, once designed for a single mind, now danced to the rhythm of 3. And yet, with each new discovery, Taran grew more vigilant. Security drones patrolled silently. Data firewalls shifted hourly, not because he feared theft, but because he understood temptation. Innovation attracts glory, but it also invites greed. Naera understood too. Her movements were calm, but her senses stayed sharp. Every step was measured, not just for balance, but for message. This is ours. Not the military's, not the corporations. Ours. She still teased him though, always watching, she said, one hand over her belly, the other brushing the workbench. My protective human, and my endlessly adapting Lavari, he replied. They kissed often now, not out of passion, but out of principle. Each moment of affection was a vow renewed that love, not fear, would define what they were building. And still, the child grew. The interface logged patterns that mimicked neural networks never seen before. It was not just adapting, it was learning from him, as if the unborn mind inside her belly already understood connection, already understood movement, already understood purpose. It's like he's teaching the legs how to walk with me, she whispered one night. Taran didn't speak. He only watched her, knowing that no sentence could carry what he felt. Their son had never seen light, never drawn breath, and already, he was helping his mother move through the world with grace, and in doing so, he reminded them both, this story had never been about reclaiming what was lost. It was about becoming something new. Together, the day came, not with alarm, but with purpose. The birthing suite, tucked deep within their private lab, was bathed in soft light and the low thrum of synced processors. Here, in the confluence of steel and skin, their world would shift again. Naera stood, on legs forged in rebellion, guided by love. She stood at the threshold of creation. No hospital, no sterile restraints, just her, Taran, and the system they had built together, piece by piece, dream by improbable dream. The interface is stable, he murmured, monitoring the displays. He's guiding it, just like before. She breathed deeply, her hands steady. Our son knows what he's doing. The medical team, a careful union of human and Lavari minds, watched in awe. This was no ordinary labor. The neural system harmonized with her contractions, adapting in real time. The child's bioelectric field didn't disrupt the process. It enhanced it, and when the pain surged, she did not cry out, she danced. She took his hand and moved with him in a slow, deliberate rhythm. A ritual older than empires, now augmented by circuitry and will. You're in labor, he whispered. Odd. And I'm walking, she answered, on the legs you gave me, about to bring into the world the child we created. Dance with me. He did. Because there was no logic to resist her. Because there were moments in life where only movement made sense. When the time came, the birthing chair welcomed her as if it had always known this was its purpose. The neural interface held steady. The processors pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Her eyes locked onto his, and he saw it, the fierce joy, the luminous courage. Their son arrived in silence. Then sound, a cry echoed through the suite, sharp and clean, followed by a surge in the bioelectric field that made every system flicker, every processor sing. Taran held him first. His skin carried the echo of green, his hair a blend of light and dark. But it was his eyes that held them both. Captive eyes that seemed to hold constellations. Naera breathed. The bridge between stars. He placed the child in her arms, the impossible, born not of war or conquest, but of trust, of unity, of love. They did not sleep that first night, but they did rest. Naera moved through the room, their son in her arms. Her steps as fluid as thought. The legs no longer felt mechanical. They had become her. The processor, now fully attuned to both mother and child, responded with a grace that defied even its own design. Taran watched them, fingers still smudged with work, eyes full of something deeper than pride. Completion, perhaps, or awe. He adjusted the stabilizers. The readings showed a new pattern now. The child's bioelectric field had imprinted on the system, not merely influencing it, becoming part of it. He's inside the code, Taran said softly, like it's listening to him. Of course it is, Naera replied. He's ours, around them. The lab hummed with quiet potential. The patent approvals had come through. Their designs had sparked new standards. The first contracts arrived, medical divisions, rehabilitation centers, researchers begging for access. But they refused exclusivity. The technology would not be caged. It would walk with everyone. Taran wrapped his arms around them both, his hands tracing the curve of her back, the tiny weight of their child between them. This was no longer just innovation. It was evolution. It was humanity. And Lavari stepping forward together. Some rules, Naera said, smiling, are worth rewriting. And some futures, he answered, are worth protecting. They spent the following days refining, teaching, stabilizing the systems. But always, they returned to each other. Every gesture between them, every shared look, reminded them of what they'd created, a story not written in theory or code, but in courage. And when the military called again, when their offers grew louder, Taran gave his answer not in words, but in action. He held his son up to the light and showed the world what possibility looked like. A child born of two worlds, a mother who walked again, a father who had salvaged, not wreckage, but meaning. Outside their window, the salvage yard still stretched to the horizon, a field of rust and memory. But within their home, the greatest treasure stirred in a cradle of light. Nixon grasped Taran's finger, and in that moment, everything they had built, every wire, every defiance, every kiss converged into a singular truth, that love, when paired with will, could rewrite even the laws of the stars, and that sometimes, the greatest act of rebellion was hope.